Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Capital Intelligence Channel. Have you ever felt like, no matter how hard you work, or even if you're making more money year after year, there's just this constant lingering stress about your finances? Like your chest kind of tightens up when you go to check your bank app? Well, trust me, you are absolutely not alone. Today, we're diving into an explainer that completely flips how we look at personal finance. It actually isn't about how much you earn at all. It's about the hidden cost of everyday life and, more importantly, finding your financial margin. Okay, let's look at our roadmap for today. We'll be hitting 5 key areas. First, the crisis of margin. Second, the everyday financial setback. Third, lifestyle creep and TikTok. Fourth, the financial literacy solution. And finally, taking control of your future. Let's get right into it. Section 1. The crisis of margin. Living too close to the edge. We're going to start by diagnosing a hidden crisis that surprisingly has literally nothing to do with your salary, but rather how much breathing room you actually have in your day-to-day life. I want you to think about a scenario from a recent National Endowment for Financial Education poll. What would happen if you had to come up with $2,000 unexpectedly? Just take a second and really think about how that scenario makes you feel right at this exact moment. If your car transmission completely gave out today, or a massive medical bill just showed up in the mail, what actually happens? Do you feel calm because you've got a plan ready to go, or does your stomach immediately drop? Well, the reality here is actually pretty startling. Only 36% of US adults are completely certain they could handle an unexpected $2,000 expense. Meanwhile, a staggering 26%, so over a quarter of the population, are absolutely certain they could not. The rest are kind of just hovering somewhere in the middle. What this proves is that widespread financial tension, it's the norm, it's not the exception. A massive chunk of people are just operating their daily lives without any safety net whatsoever, basically just crossing their fingers and hoping nothing goes wrong. So the real issue here isn't necessarily a lack of income, it's a lack of margin. Margin is just that financial breathing room between what comes in and what goes out. It's the shock absorber that keeps a minor setback from turning into a full-blown crisis. Because without it, you are essentially living just one surprise away from panic mode. When you're running on zero margin, a flat tire on your commute suddenly feels like a complete financial disaster because there's literally no room in your system to absorb that hit. Moving right along to Section 2, the everyday financial setback, the myth of dramatic disasters. Let's look at exactly how living without that margin turns perfectly normal life events into terrifying emergencies. You know, we often have this false belief that financial ruin only comes from dramatic, once-in-a-lifetime catastrophes, stuff like a major market crash, a sudden bankruptcy, or some incredibly rare medical emergency. But when you actually look at the data, the reality of what derails us is way more mundane. It's the ordinary, everyday disruptions that truly knock people off track. It's a blown transmission. It's a leaky roof after a bad storm. It's your hours getting unexpectedly cut at work for just a couple of weeks. These aren't exotic financial disasters. They are just normal life occurring as it always does. And because they lack that margin, 35% of people default right to their credit cards to handle these normal, everyday hiccups. Think about what that actually means in practice. Putting that on a credit card quietly makes the underlying problem so much worse. You are now stacking high interest and brand new monthly payments on top of a normal life disruption. You're not really solving the problem, you're just financing it. And by doing that, your margin shrinks even further next month, making you way more vulnerable to the next inevitable surprise. All right, Section 3, Lifestyle Creep and TikTok, the modern exacerbators. If ordinary expenses are the spark, let's explore the powerful psychological pressures that are basically pouring gasoline on our vanishing margin. We absolutely have to talk about lifestyle creep. As the financial expert Ramit Sethi points out, when we earn more money, we tend to subconsciously upgrade our lives. And it makes sense, right? We feel like we've earned a reward. You get a nice raise, and suddenly you go from booking practical 3-star hotels to treating yourself to 4-star luxury. Or you start buying nicer clothes, maybe convince yourself you need that more expensive car. But without even realizing it, you completely wipe out the new financial margin you just gained by dragging your baseline spending right up to match your new paycheck. And man, this pressure to constantly upgrade is heavily compounded by social media. Academic researchers are actually actively studying things like the Alex Earl effect on TikTok right now, because constant exposure to influencer consumption, watching people endlessly unbox luxury goods, show off massive shopping hauls, or fly first class, it completely warps our financial self-perception and our deepest desires. It makes us feel fundamentally behind, pushing us to spend money we don't actually have just to keep up with a carefully curated illusion.
Which brings us to Section 4, the financial literacy solution, education over shame. The really good news here is that just recognizing these traps is step one, and the ultimate way out is a structural fix rooted entirely in education.
Before we talk strategy, I really need you to hear this loud and clear. If you are stressed about money, you are not the problem. You are simply undereducated by a system that never, ever prioritized financial literacy. This conversation is not about judgment or feeling embarrassed about past mistakes. We all make them. We need to approach our finances with zero shame. True financial literacy shouldn't ever be framed as judgment. It should be framed as empowerment. It is purely about handing you the options and the confidence you were never taught. So let's look at a concrete, super effective solution called paying yourself first. Basically, this is reverse budgeting. Instead of spending your money and just crossing your fingers that you'll save whatever is left over, which, let's be real, rarely ever happens, you completely flip the script. You secure your margin immediately. The second your paycheck hits, step one is moving money straight into savings or investments. Step two, you spend whatever is left completely guilt-free. Just imagine how much lighter you'd feel knowing your future is already funded the moment you get paid. The daily stress disappears because the most important job is already done.
And finally, Section 5, taking control of your future, the compound effect. Let's talk about how putting this foundational knowledge into practice actually transforms your future and your family's legacy.
Albert Einstein famously said, "Compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it. He who doesn't pays it." And he hit the nail on the head. Understanding powerful mechanics like the Rule of 72 and compound interest is an absolute game changer. Once you've carved out a little bit of margin using that reverse budgeting trick, you can start investing it. That is the exact moment you shift from just surviving everyday setbacks to actively building wealth while you sleep. Your money finally starts working for you, instead of you constantly working for it. As financial educator Tom Matthews beautifully puts it, financial literacy is your path to freedom. It all starts by knowing where you are. Stopping that domino effect of financial stress really just begins with this simple, courageous act of taking a hard, honest look at your current numbers. You can't fix a map if you don't know where you're starting from, right? Getting absolute clarity on your cash flow and your debt is step number one toward lasting financial freedom. So what can you do right now to change your trajectory? First, figure out exactly where debt is quietly draining your flexibility. Next, share these concepts with your friends and family so you can break the cycle together. I'll leave you with this final thought. Are you going to keep letting a lack of margin dictate your stress and control your life? Or will you take a financial literacy quiz today, face your numbers head on, and start building the breathing room you absolutely deserve? The choice is entirely yours.